Good morning. Good morning. Thank you. It's good to see all of you. Here we are at the Ventura Center for Spiritual Living. I'm Reverend Bonnie Rose, in case you didn't know that. We are here today to celebrate, to love as God loves, to be that center of love that we are, and to just open our hearts in joy and wonder. So let us stand up together. We'll start by singing our congregational song. And we'll just breathe deeply and just, again, resonate with those beautiful words that Doreen brought us to truly know that love, joy, peace, harmony is our source. And not only is it our source, it embraces everything. It embraces the darkness and the light, the joy and the sorrow. That there is something greater than our world of opposites. And so we rest in that world right now. We allow it to be in the forefront of our consciousness, our awakened state. And we breathe and we go deeper into that awakening as we open our hearts and listen to the words of our sacred reading.
Grateful for Each Breath, from Buddhist Boot Camp by Timber Hawkeye. The phrase, take a deep breath, is misleading. The breath isn't something we can just take. Breathing is a gift, a miracle, offered to us over and over again. Yet, much like our health, we often take it for granted, right up until the moment we no longer have it. Let's accept this gift with gratitude and appreciation, as we would all presents, by saying thank you. Sometimes society can seem disgruntled and ungrateful, and the world may appear to no longer be appreciative. But some of its people still are, and therein lies the promise. So go ahead, accept a few deep breaths with your eyes closed and a smile on your face. In, out. In, out. In, and out. What a joy it is to be alive. In the words of Benjamin Franklin, being content makes poor men rich. Discontentment makes rich men poor. And so it is.
And so it is, and so we allow it to be as we breathe into that deep sense of contentment. Whatever that feels like for us. It could be that we're moving through something, through a grief, through a sorrow, through a sense of lack, but underlying all conditions is this deep, abiding love, the ultimate reality. And so we rest in that as we sing our next chant, which is, I am remembering who I am. And in this chant, we remember our true nature, however it shows up individually as us. I am is the name of love. I am is the name of God, higher power, spirit, joy, peace. All of these things we are. And the beauty of this is that as we know the spiritual truth for ourselves, since there is only one of us here, we know it for the other people sitting in this room, in this sacred community, and we know it for the entire world. With this chant, we bless all beings everywhere in the universe. Let us sing together, I am remembering. I am remembering. And in the beauty of this remembrance, in this elegant silence, the voice of spirit, the voice of love is loud. And so we bring that remembrance into our open-eyed state as we breathe in deeply and then exhale, gently opening our eyes in love with what is, as it is, and so it is.
In between the giving and receiving, in between the doubting and believing, once I found myself in a place. It felt like heaven or a state of grace. In between the coming and the going, in between uncertainty and knowing, all unbidden a hidden face revealed itself to be a state of grace. So we keep these holy days, and we see what each conveys. Everyone is a child in the presence of love. In between the churning and the chasing, in between the yearning and embracing, so we sing these songs of praise. A doorway opens to a state of grace. Let us keep these holy days, sing the songs of hope and praise, so to welcome the child and the presence of love, love everlasting, in between the cradle and the crying, in between our dancing and our dying, still we will return to a place. The doorway opens and the heart grows wide. We'll be edified in a state of grace. State of grace.
I have never heard one of the chapters from my own book narrated so beautifully. My goodness. I think you have a career there in the audiobook narrating. Every organization, every corporation, every company, every congregation has a mission statement, has core values, and quite often they are written on the wall. And you go into grocery stores like Whole Foods, and it's written right there on the wall. This is our commitment. I'm not sure if it's the same now that it's owned by Amazon, but they still have core values. They still have a mission statement. And I guess I'm curious why so few of us have that as individuals. Why don't we have our core values, our mission statement written down somewhere? Heck, put it on a plaque on the wall. Say, this is the kind of person I want to be. This is the kind of life I want to lead. And then you're almost holding yourself accountable, because we don't expect certain companies to live in line with our values. We're not disappointed when they don't. We're disappointed when they don't live in line with their own values, right? When there's an incongruence. So if somebody wears a leather jacket walking down the streets, that's totally fine. But if somebody wears a leather jacket to an animal rights campaign, there's a rub. And Gandhi said that happiness is when what we think, what we say, and what we do are all in alignment. They're all in harmony. And the reason for that is that when they're not in harmony, we can't be happy because we have internal conflict that we refuse to look at. We say one thing, but we do another. And we may not be aware of this. We may be living our lives thinking, we're kind, we're generous, and that's what our status on Facebook says. But, it's not about what you believe. It's not about what you wear around your neck. It's not about what statues you have in your home. Your beliefs don't make you a better person. Your behavior does. So we're talking about behavior modification. So Gandhi also said that your actions convey your priorities. So if you want to know where your priorities are, and they're not written down, look at your actions. And all of Buddhism can be encapsulated into pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. So the pain of life is inevitable. We all grow old, we all get sick, we all die. That's inevitable. But we don't have to suffer through it. Suffering is pain plus resistance. So pain plus resistance equals suffering. And the first noble truth is that life is suffering. And most people go, well, that's depressing. I don't want to read anything more about Buddhism. But it goes on to say that there's a way out of that suffering. And it's by acknowledging that we create so much of our own suffering. And I know I did. I went through so much of my life with someone else kind of behind the wheel. I was the one making the decisions, but I wasn't the one from whom the ideas originated, if that makes sense. When we're born, we're exposed to, I recently sent out an email because I got this visual that when we start out as passengers on our life is a road trip, and when we're kids, we're in the back seat. Our parents are driving, and they raise us to follow a certain road. They tell us about possible hazards coming up ahead, and when we turn 18, some of us don't, but some people so get out of our parents' car and start driving ourselves. And quite often, we drive right onto that on-ramp they pointed out to us. We follow the road they gave us. We quite often mimic their driving style, their pace, and their direction. And very rarely do we ask ourselves, why am I doing what I'm doing? It just seems so natural to do that. Or, like what I did, is just peel out and speed in the opposite direction. But either way, at 18, we start being responsible for our own direction, our own decisions. And yet, so many of us still blame our parents for the life we lead, or blame our kids for the life. I've heard it said that we spend the first half of our life blaming our parents and the second half of our life blaming our kids. And I guess the invitation, what I realized is that, yes, I was programmed, as we all were growing up, with certain values, with certain messages. But at some point, I think it's really important for all of us to reevaluate, to go, is that still true? Because even in your own life, what you held true 10, 15 years ago may not still be true today. And, the first principle in Buddhist boot camp is that the opposite of what you know is also true to somebody else, somewhere else, because of their time, place, and circumstance. And many people really resist that. They go, no, the opposite of what I know isn't true because my truth is the ultimate truth. And it's really interesting that those who believe there's an ultimate truth conveniently believe it's their own. And I think the only thing I know for certain is that I don't know anything for certain. And there is tremendous freedom and letting go of that need to know. And I think that's where trust and faith comes in, that we trust that everything is as it needs to be. And if it isn't, if at any point we resist, if we take that pain of fires in the area and we label it as terrible and horrible and tragic, it's because we're zooming in on that one instant, that one moment, and we label it as horrible and bad or wrong. Or it could be a political climate, or it could be any one thing. And many people have those mirrors in their bathrooms where if you flip it over, everything is 10 times magnified. Nothing looks good that close up. The world is very much like that too. If you're looking at any one situation, any one corner of the world that close up, you're missing out on what role it plays in the big picture. So the invitation is to zoom out, and if it still looks terrible, zoom out some more until you don't label it as terrible anymore. You say it's happening for reasons that are simply far beyond my limited comprehension. And so acknowledging that our comprehension is limited, I mean, we only see 3 dimensions. That's so limited. We know there are other dimensions at play, but we only see 3. And we're only alive for like a blink of an eye. And we see such a tiny little portion of the universe. So for any of us to say, this is right and this is wrong, is so short-sighted. I don't know if that makes sense. I have faith that it all plays a major part in a much bigger picture that I am just grateful to be a part of for this briefest of moments. Everything, I'm gonna go out on a limb here, and I'm gonna make an assumption that you've survived everything that's happened in your life so far. And if I was in Vegas taking a bet on whether you're going to survive what comes next, I'm going to put all my money on you making it through because your track record's 100%. Unlike some football teams. So, I don't know anything. I don't even know who's playing today. But puppies, apparently. Puppies. So the invitation, I think my favorite invitation came from Rumi when he said, beyond right and wrong, there's a field. I will meet you there. And I like accepting that invitation because every single time I catch myself following old programming that I received when I was younger to label something as good or bad, I now catch myself and go, what if it isn't? What if someone else thinks that the opposite of what I think? So how can I see it from their angle and then loosen my grip so that I'm not white-knuckling my way through life, so I'm not resisting, so I'm not turning pain into suffering? Does that make sense? A couple of months ago, I gave a talk here in town, and one of the women had lost her house in the fire, and she said, what a great opportunity to start over. And I've been through many experiences in life where I even later looked back and wanted to call it terrible or tragic. And I remember speaking with Reverend Sky in Hawaii, and he said, you know, Timber, what happened, happened. We're tempted to say we can't change history, but in a way we can, because what we remember of history is our narration of it, is our story of it. And what he pointed out to me is that, Timber, you're the one with a pen in your hand. You wrote that narrative. You called it terrible. You called it horrible. You called it tragic. You can rewrite that. And quite often when we look back, it all makes sense. Sometimes someone breaks up with us and we're horribly broke. And then sometimes as recently as a week later, we go, wow, dodged a bullet there. It's to not just be grateful. I'm not just grateful for what's happened in my life. I'm grateful for everything I wished would happen and didn't. There's a song by Garth Brooks. Sometimes I thank God for unanswered prayers. So the invitation, to kind of circle it back to where it started, is to live in line with our core values. we can't do that if we don't know what they are. You know, I recently posted a video online of explaining how I've been living off of $7,000 a year for the last 12 years of my life. And people go, how do you do that? So I finally said, yeah, I'm just going to make a video and show him. And then people go, well, what do you eat? So I guess I'm going to start doing videos of what I eat. The way I've been able to do that is by redefining what enough is. And once you have enough, you don't have to raise, like when I was younger and I would get a raise at work, I would get a new car. And I would get another raise, I would get a bigger apartment. I would get another raise, I would get new clothes. And I just, every time I made more than enough, I raised my standard of living. And after backpacking for so long and realized how little I actually need, now when I have more than enough, I raise my standard of giving instead of my standard of living. Another way to look at it is if you have more than enough, build a longer dining table, not a taller fence. So, the common theme across our country, however, is bigger, better, faster, more. We want more, and again, it's for one simple reason: we haven't defined what enough looks like. And if you don't know what enough is, you'll never have it. And similarly, if you don't know what your core values are, how can you possibly live in line with them? This congregation, do you guys call yourself a congregation? Church, fellowship, sangha, congregation. Has core values, and they're committed to living in line with them. And the moment they won't, I'm sure someone's going to go, hey, wait a minute. You're saying this and you're doing this. And life does that for us. It invites us to come back onto the path. I think that's why we meet regularly. It's difficult to stay on the path. There are exits every couple of yards. There are distractions. There are posters and billboards. And our attention span is so short. And so we come back together to remind one another, to remember, this is where I want to be. Tempting as it may be to take this exit. Or maybe I did take the exit, but we remember, come back. Always come back. We're going to be meeting later today, 12 o'clock downstairs, is that correct? Downstairs, for a longer discussion. I hold this quite often. It's more of a discussion circle than a talk, because a lot of times people have questions. They go, I've read the book, but how do I apply this to my life? Or I hear what you're saying, that the opposite of what I know is also true, but how is that possible in the Middle East, where I think it's most possible? And so we're going to be meeting at 12 o'clock after the break, and you guys can ask questions, offer answers, hopefully. And we can talk about how to apply these teachings into our daily lives, how we can take this concept of a core value and implement it into our life, much like an organization does. And keep in mind that it's not black and white. From what I understand, even this congregation is going, this has been our value so far, but we need to grow to expand it to accommodate even more. And so, much like our junk drawer in the kitchen, we don't just clean it out once and then it's done, right? We do it every week or every month or I don't know how often you do it. I'm not going to come over and check, but you open it and you go, why did I keep this? What was I thinking? And I think many of our beliefs, many of our values, many of the things we were taught along the way made sense at a certain point, but they may not make sense anymore. So revisit them, reevaluate. If your commitment is to be kind, are you kind to everyone or just to people who agree with you? So we're going to talk about how life is not about creating a bubble where nobody pushes your buttons, but how to get to a place where you don't have any more buttons that can be pushed. That's our higher calling. So if I see you downstairs, that's great. We'll continue this discussion. If I don't, I hope you go home and write down the paragraph describing the kind of life you want to live, the kind of person you want to be, and then cross-reference it with the person you are. And you'll see where you have some work to do. Because we're so tempted to blame other people for why we're not happy. But it's nobody else's job. Someone else may make you smile, but no one can make you happy. That's your job. So we'll meet downstairs. I will also have copies of the book for sale. Every time you buy a copy, another one is donated to the Prison Library Project. So that applause goes to you. It's not something I'm doing, it's what you guys are doing. So I get hundreds of letters in the mail thanking me for doing it, and all those letters need to be addressed to you because every time you do it, it's an incredible gift. So thank you for being here and for going home and writing down your core values and to see, are you living in line with them? Namaste.
Wow, that was so beautiful, wasn't it? Just wonderful, yeah. So those of you who attend here regularly know I just got back from India, where I was in the land of Gandhi, meditating at the Gandhi ashram. And one of the things that Gandhi said is that Gandhi did not make the truth made Gandhi. And that's what I hear in what Timber said, that and so much more. Rumi's field, the land beyond knowing of wrongdoing and right doing. And when the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about because we just can't comprehend it with our human software. But as we open our hearts in prayer and in meditation, we get glimmers of what it's like to be there and what it's like to live there. And then that translates into the life that we live through our behavior. So let's turn within now and get some glimmers through the power of prayer and meditation. So we turn within, and I invite you, if you like, to gently close your eyes and just take some nice deep breaths with me, breathing in and breathing out. And going to that place called truth. Not truth as you or I know it, not truth as we define it, not the truth of this or that, but the truth of yes and. The truth of that place of non-duality where everything exists, where there are no walls to existence, that everything lives inside this place that we call existence or reality or the absolute. And we open ourselves to know that, to feel that in our bodies, to embody it, to breathe it, to sense it, to trust it, to feel it in our hearts and in our minds, that there is this place called existence that is limitless, that is beyond opposites, that is beyond wrongdoing and right doing, that is truth that cannot be defined, but nonetheless it is truth. And so we breathe into that place, and as we breathe into that place, we recognize that we are individualized expressions of that truth. And so the values that Timber was talking about, the values that call to you in your heart, that person that you want to be, that's your individualized expression of truth. And so we listen to that now. We ask ourselves, who do I want to be? Sometimes it's helpful to look at who you admire and know that you can see what is in them because it is also in you and it is longing to express. And so we breathe into that place of knowing what is valuable to us. And here together, supporting one another, let us make a commitment to write it down, to speak it, to sing it, to live it, to allow our lives to be a reflection of that which longs to express through us, that value, that truth, that is using our hearts and our minds and our bodies and our beings to express itself, to know more of life through us, to know more of itself through us, casting itself into existence to experience the joy of self-discovery. This is who we are. And it's so wonderful to know that for ourselves. It's wonderful to know that for ourselves individually, but it's also wonderful to know that for us collectively. Not only for the people sitting in this room, but for the people beyond the walls of this center, beyond the walls of this country, beyond the universe, that all beings are part of this truth called existence. And so we breathe into the vastness of that and feel that as well. And feel the rightness of it and the goodness of it and the trust that knowing that everything is unfolding exactly as it should. that we do not need to fight the entire universe, that we can just allow things to be and breathe and relax and live and love in grace. Here in this center, our values are evolving to, we are a center of love, and it is our vision to be love, share love, and serve love. And so we allow that to happen. We lower our standard of living and expand our standard of giving. I'm just so grateful to know this truth, so grateful to embody it, so grateful to share it with this beautiful room, so grateful to share it with all beings. So grateful to know that truth is beyond my comprehension, but that just makes it exciting and more mystical in terms of discovering it and allowing it to express in unique and wonderful, surprising ways through each of us. So grateful for this beautiful, beautiful center, for what we teach here, and so grateful for all paths to God. We bless all of them. Churches, synagogues, temples, mosques, ashrams. We bless fundamentalists and atheists. We bless all beings of all paths and all beings of who claim to have no path. And with a heart that is so filled with gratitude and so filled with fullness and so filled with emptiness and so filled with the wonder of being, let us embody these words and then release them into the mystery of divine love. As together we say, and so it is. I am so glad.
Here's a little song I wrote. You might want to sing it note for note. Don't worry. Be happy. In every life we got some trouble. Don't you worry, you make it double. Don't worry. Be happy. Who can whistle? Landlord say your rent is late. You might have to litigate, but don't you worry. Be happy. When you worry, your face will frown, and that will make everybody down. Don't you worry, don't you worry, just be happy. Yeah, keep on helping me out. You gotta trust it, you gotta trust it inside. Don't you worry, just be happy. As I said, no shame, no blame, no complaint, no regret, no worry, it's the law. That's what you get. 'Cause God's got your back, life's got your front, life's got you inside out. Don't you worry, just be happy, 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 happy. Ooh, oh, 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 oh. One more time. So here's a little song I wrote. I hope that you learned it note for note. Don't you worry. You gotta be happy. Don't you worry. Come on, be happy. You can do it, don't you worry. Get happy. Don't you worry. Get happy.